Summary of We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. The story of We is told through a series of 40 records that are written by D503, the narrator of the novella. The story takes place in the far future in the one state, a society run by a strict authoritarian government. D503 is a mathematician and engineer who is in charge of designing the Integral, a rocket ship that the one state will use to go to other planets and spread the idea that everyone should obey the government and that logic, math, and reason should rule all public life. D503 writes his records so that the alien civilizations that he has conquered can read them and learn more about the ideals and history of their new, cruel rulers. In the one state, there is a cruel leader called the benefactor who acts like God. The benefactor thinks that the welfare of the state is more important than people's rights. As a result, people, called ciphers, live under the strict and constant watch of guardians, who are government-appointed police officers. The wild, free world is cut off from the one state by a huge wall called the Green Wall. The homes of ciphers are made of clear glass. The government strips them of their individuality by making them wear uniforms, called unifs, and violently punishing any form of personal expression. The table of hours is a carefully controlled routine that describes how the ciphers' daily lives are planned. They don't even have control over their sex lives. The state pairs ciphers with sex partners, and they have to ask for a pink ticket to have planned, passionless sex with their state-approved partners. The strict rules of the state say that ciphers who break them will be put to death by a machine called the machine of the benefactor. In his early records, D503 is totally subservient to the one state. He totally agrees with the government that the health of the group is more important than each person's freedom. He thinks that the only way to be happy is to follow logic and reason and get rid of your wants. He becomes more in touch with his human side as the story goes on, though, and his records become more emotional, illogical, and lost. D503 meets a female cipher named I330 and a male cipher named S4711 while on a scheduled walk with O90, his regular sex partner. D503 knows S4711 as a guardian. I330 flirts openly with D503, which is against the rules for the state. D503 doesn't like her approaches because he doesn't understand what makes her act so boldly and defiantly. He says that she has something annoying about her. Still, he feels both disgusted and attracted to this strange woman cipher. I330 asks D503 to go with her to the ancient house one day. I330 takes D503 to an apartment once she gets there, and she puts on an old-fashioned yellow dress that makes her look more feminine. D503 is excited. I330 tries to get him to stay with her after the personal hour is over by telling him that she knows a doctor at the Bureau of Medicine who will make up fake sick notes for them both so they don't have to work. It bothers D503 that I330 is so excited about ignoring her duties to the one state. He turns down her offer and says he will tell the Bureau of Guardians about her actions. No matter how much D503 is meant to hate I330 and her bad behavior, he can't report her to the police because he says he doesn't have time. He says he is sick and goes to the Bureau of Medicine instead of the Bureau of Guardians. The other day, I330 asks D503 to meet her in her room for sex. When he gets there, she does things that are against the law, like smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol. D503 gets drunk when I330 gives him some alcohol. He then becomes angry and in touch with his animalistic side, which he calls his other self. I330 hints that she has another boyfriend while she is very excited, which makes D503 jealous. He grabs her fast with his shaggy paws, which is what he calls his hairy, animal-like hands, and bites her. They can't have sex because the personal hour is over. I330's friend is a doctor at the Bureau of Medicine, and he eventually gives D503 and I330 fake sick notes. They don't go to work and have intense, illegal sex at the ancient house. As soon as the encounter is over, I330 suddenly leaves the building. D503 has a sex day with O90 the next night, but he can't act. O90 is broken up. D503 admits that he can't stop liking I-330 even though she's ruining his relationships with O90 and R13, his poet friend. When D503 gets to work at the hangar, the second builder of the integral tells him that someone broke into the hangar while he was sick yesterday. Guardians took the cipher away and made him go through the operation, a surgery that takes away the mind's ability to imagine. D503 has mixed feelings about the procedure. He says that he knows he has to act rationally and efficiently for the state, but he doesn't definitely want to go through with the operation to get rid of his sickness, even if it makes him miserable, sleepless, and irrational. Since I-330 left from the ancient house, D503 hasn't heard from her and wants to see her again so badly. He knows he will be late to work because he is looking for her, so he goes to the Bureau of Medicine to get a sick note. There, D503 is told that she has a soul or thought, which the government sees as a very bad thing because it makes ciphers less like machines. D503's soul is making him dream, have trouble sleeping, and think irrationally. I-330's skinny doctor friend tells him to go for more walks to get rid of these symptoms. D503 goes for a walk the next day because the doctor told her to. As he walks along the green wall toward the ancient house, he sees a hairy, wild-looking person with yellow eyes on the other side of the wall. He wonders if this cruel person is better than he is. D503 goes to the ancient house to look for I-330. In the closet of the apartment where they hang out together, he finds a secret doorway. D503 goes out. At the end of a hallway is where he is when he wakes up. He finally finds I-330 and the skinny doctor by listening to sounds. I-330 needs to tell D503 where he is and what's going on. She says she will do it. Soon after, O90 sends D503 a letter telling him she can't stand to see him because he's in love with I-330. She promises to take herself off of his sex list. A few days later, O90 is waiting for D503 when he gets back to his flat. She begs him to give her a baby, which is something she has always wanted even though the law says she can't. D503 does what she asks, even though he knows O90 will get in a lot of trouble with the state. Later, on the day of the one vote, which was the election day for the one state, people who didn't agree with the benefactor voted against him, which broke the usually peaceful election process. The next day, the one state calls these resistors the enemies of happiness in the newspaper. In the evening, D503 meets I-330 at the ancient house. When she takes him to the free world past the green wall, he sees a huge group of hairy, naked people. I-330 talks to them and tells them that the rebels are going to steal the integral. She tells them that D503 is building the integral. The crowd cheers for him, and he likes being a unique person. I-330 gives D503 a drink, and his memory starts to fade. He does remember seeing S-4711 among the naked people, which makes him feel uncomfortable. D503 is paranoid because S-4711 has been closely watching him for a while, but he is also thankful that S-4711's presence might keep him from moving against the one state. In the days following D503's trip to the free world, I-330 tells him about the structure and history of MEFI, the rebel group she is a part of. MEFI wants to get rid of the one state and give its people back their freedom and individuality. From I-330 to D503, the next day's first test flight of the integral will be MEFI's chance to take control of the plane and use it to fight the one state. Though he is very torn and worried about his choice, D503 decides to betray the state and work with MEFI. About 24 hours before the integral's test flight, D503 goes outside and sees a group of ciphers that look like zombies because they've been through the operation. They try to get D503 to join them and get the operation as well. As D503 runs away, she runs into O90, who is hiding from the post-operation ciphers and can now be seen to be pregnant. O90 agrees to D503's offer to help her get across the green wall to safety because she is afraid for the safety of her unborn child. Since more and more people are disobeying the law on the day of the integral's planned test flight, the one state has to delay the mission by one more day. D503 tries to steal the integral on the day of the rescheduled flight, but someone has told the police about Mephi's plan. The integral goes back to the one state safe and whole. I-330 says that D503 has betrayed her. He denies what she says. D503 finally figures out that you, the woman who watches over the front desk at D503's apartment, told the police about Mephi's plans because she was worried about D503 and jealous of I-330. D503 is furious and tries to kill her, but he is called to the benefactor's quarters before he can. The benefactor tells D503 that I-330 was only pretending to love him and was using him to get to the integral, so he should be ashamed of what he did. D503 gets off the benefactor and heads back to I-330. When they say goodbye, it's cold and formal because their relationship is over. The Guardians show up at D503's room, and he agrees to the operation. His last record is very different from the middle parts of We because it doesn't have any feeling or subjective expressionism. He lets the reader know that he gave the Guardians I-330. She refused to betray her cause even though the Guardians abused her. We end with D503's strong belief in the one state. There are still people who are against the state, but D503 knows that the state will keep going because it values reason above all else and reason should win.
About the author. Yevgeny Ivanovich Zamyatin was born in Lebedyen, Tambov Governorate, in the Russian Empire, on February 1, 1884. Zamyatin joined the Bolsheviks while he was studying naval engineering in St. Petersburg from 1902 to 1908. He would later be uneasy about or critical of many of the Soviet Union's policies. The mathematics themes in We show that Zamyatin has a background in engineering. He was sent to Siberia as a prisoner of war during the Russian Revolution of 1905 because he was a student agitator. He got away, went back to St. Petersburg, and lived there without permission. He was caught and sent to prison again in 1911, but in 1913 he was released. While he was in jail, Zamyatin started writing satires. His most famous work is In the Backwoods, which came out in 1914. After being sent to work in England, Zamyatin came back to Russia and was given writing work by Maxim Gorky, a socialist realism author. It was during this time that he released a scary story called The Cave. He was arrested again by the Soviet government in 1919 and 1922. People think of We as his most famous work. It was written between 1920 and 1921. In 1931, Zamyatin asked Stalin to tell him to leave the Soviet Union because, as a writer, he was more likely to be persecuted for his political views. After Stalin agreed to Zamyatin's request, he and his wife went to Paris. While in Paris, Zamyatin worked with director Jean Renoir on The Lower Depths, a 1963 movie based on Gorky's book that Zamyatin co-wrote. Zamyatin died in 1937.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.